So there's about 3 ways that I am able to pause my mind and only focus on one thing, and watching sports is one of those. And I am a hockey fan as well as the other sports, and TNT has finally brought back hockey night. We're about a quarter of the way through the season, and they had a doubleheader Tuesday night. So I've been looking forward to that for a few days. And while I was anticipating a great game, what struck me most this week was what Eddie Olczyk had to say before the game. He's a commentator for TNT. He played in the league 16 years, was on a winning Stanley Cup winning team in '94. He's been on TNT and NBC for a number of years commentating. And the doubleheader happened to coincide with Hockey Fights Cancer Night. And he shared very vulnerably and in a lot of detail about his personal battle 7 years ago with stage 3 colon cancer. And he said that he was in the middle of his second treatment with 10 to go, and it was so bad, he's ready to give it all up and just be done with all things. And he said that he had heard a lot of pep talks and motivational and inspiring speeches through his career and with organizations he was involved in. But the best pep talk and speech he ever heard was that night from his wife. And his wife says, "You gotta keep going. You gotta keep trying. Your kids need you. I need you. Other people need you." And he decided that night to not give up. And he was telling about the 6 years that have passed since that ordeal, and that life had become good. And one of the strangest things I'd heard a person say was, he said, if I can provide hope to somebody, or somebody can listen to my story and not give up in the middle of something so bad you want to give up, then I take what I had with cancer as a gift, and I would do it again. And I thought, well, that's what the scriptures are telling us in our, we've spent the last 5 weeks focused on hope. And whether we're in Colossians or Corinthians or Romans or back in Proverbs or today Lamentations, no matter what period of history is captured in the Bible, the message turns to hope. And I was reminded of what we discussed about 1 Corinthians and Paul saying that faith, love, and hope are the only 3 things that never die. And I thought, we have a person here in this story that he told on national TV about how there is always hope on the horizon, and how fortunate we are to have family and a church family that when things get rough, when things look totally dismal, we have people we can turn to who can encourage us and help us. We've personally felt that in the last several months. We feel your love. We feel your prayers. I've been excited for days that both Benjamin and Muriel be able to join me today in worship, because there is so much to be thankful for. There is burdens on the horizon, and we've been in burdens for a while, but hope is something that we cling to. And I hope that when you come here, you feel that hope and love as we do, and know that no matter what you may be experiencing, hope, faith, and love will last forever. The book of Lamentations opens pretty dismally, and it's not so much a historical portrayal of what it was like with the destruction of Jerusalem, Babylonian captivity, the destruction of the temple. That it's more about what graphically the people experienced as a whole, and just how bad that famine, an enemy reigning over you, servitude, economic distress, fields barren, temple burned. These are all terrible things that they were going through. And as we look to not only that graphical portrayal of what's going on in the first chapter, we can, I think, even in 2024, understand what that turmoil can do when finances are tight, or we are mourning the death of loved ones who've gone before us, or things haven't worked out with harvest, and when we see things destroyed as we witnessed with Hurricane Helene, that it can be a lot for a person to carry, but we also can see a community coming together, hope and love being shown, mercy towards others. And while we go through the book of Lamentations, which is just 5 distinct poems, we then get into chapter 2 after the details of chapter 1. And I think if we want to sum up what chapter 2 is telling us, how can you have faith in the midst of all this suffering? And with that question posed in chapter 2, by the time we get to chapter 3, really starting with verse 19, although we started with verse 21 today, you can see despair turn into hope. Because what has happened, and I think if I was going to sum up what the writers are trying to tell us in chapter 3 is, I thought all hope was gone, but my problem was that I had a very narrow view of God. I thought only of the judgment of God and my sin. I forgot about the mercy of God and his forgiveness. And so we see something turn from dismal despair into faith and hope. And we see him talk about God's steadfast love. There's some real nice nuggets in the 8 verses we read this morning. Great is thy faithfulness. It's a hymn that we sing often. The Lord is my portion. With him I have my hope. I think this is things we can look forward to even if we're in the good times or maybe in a rough season of life, because I find that once we get to Thanksgiving week, it can have a lot of emotions over the next 5 weeks. There's the excitement of family getting together. There's the excitement of the Christmas season and shopping to get meaningful gifts for friends and loved ones, celebrating the birth of our Savior. And while those are mighty fine and high times, I have also found that they can end up being low times as well. The days are shorter, the nights get colder. We miss people who are no longer a part of our lives. If it's the first holiday without a loved one, that can have sting. And often some of my darkest days follow immediately after Christmas, because there have been 5 beautiful weeks of joy and people and food and all those things, and then it ends. And we go back to how life was before, and that can be difficult. And I know that when hope is lost, time can feel like a punishment. And there's times in our lives where we just want pain to stop. And how do we go about finding a way to get that to stop? Are you here today with worry? Are you weighted down with any anxiety? Are you feeling any shame? Or, do you have a feeling that, I don't know where to go next? And if that is, that's okay. I would say what I would ask you is worry helping you on your journey? Is stress helping you on your journey? Is there any shame or burdens that you're carrying that maybe in a concerted effort we can leave those here with God? We can turn those over and have the same faith that we see in the middle of Lamentations. We're only halfway through this story, and sometimes when we're in the middle of our own story, it can seem confusing and uncertain, but let us remember that whether we're at the beginning of the Bible or at the end, we have a message of love and of hope throughout. The writer seems to recognize that even in all the turmoil going on, we forgot that God is merciful, God is loving, that He has our best interest at heart, that He will help carry us through the hard times. And when we're in the good times, we can be an encourager. We can be a support for those around us who may be struggling. It can be hard to ask for help. It can be hard sometimes to extend help. But when we live in a world that tells us you need to stand up on your own 2 feet, you need to buck up, you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, remember the Christian message that Paul has for us. We live in a community together. We help each other. We share and give, and we receive. And when we all work together, we all have enough. We can all get through the hard times, and we can celebrate the good times. The verse 57, later in this chapter of Lamentations, says, "Do not fear." Jesus repeats this in Mark chapter 5. Jesus tells us, do not fear, only believe. And I think that's the same message we have in Lamentations. Do not fear. It is going to be okay. We have a journey still left to complete, but we do have some good news to rest our weary souls on, because great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion. Therefore I will hope in Him. Find your hope in Him today and release whatever turmoil or burdens you have here at the altar today, because tomorrow will be as bright as we allow it to be. May this week be a time of reflection and gratitude. And may we all leave here today better than we got here. That's the good news this morning. Thank you.